Well, today I'm glad to announce our first guest, Anthony Passarelli from CMHC, on our new podcast, which I had to think of names, and I played with so many names. And because we're in real estate and finance and all that kind of stuff too, I really love it. And I came up with compound interest. But I want this to be, compound interest, but like everybody's always interested in real estate, but there are these sidebar stories that I think that we want to cover and things like that. So just make it a little bit more that way and stuff like that. So I'm pleased to have you on our inaugural show. So thank you so much for joining us.
Oh, it's great to be here.
Yeah, and you're a Burlington native, and which is fantastic. But we don't want anybody to know that, because in case they give you hate mail or something.
They come by me now.
They'll come by your house. No, I'm just kidding.
It's a great place to live. This whole region, it's a great place to raise a family. I moved out here actually once I got married, and we have our kids, and they're in school here now. It's awesome.
Yeah. So not only do you know the fabric, the fabric of the community for other reasons, but also you've got some data and some numbers and things like that. Let's kind of jump into it. Let's talk about CMHC. For some people that maybe, all of us, we know CMHC, what it is, but let's talk about the mandate. And I know it's about bringing affordability, more liquidity, helping maintain like homeowners, their ability to get into the market, first time buyers, all that kind of stuff, and systematization, innovation, all that kind of stuff. How often do you review the mandate, and where is the mandate today, and what would you give the mandate as far as an A, B, or C?
Starting off with a tough question.
Oh yeah, let's do it. Let's do it. Okay, let's go right into it.
Fastball right away. Yeah. The mandate, in a nutshell, it's pretty much just bringing affordability to housing, right?
Yes.
At a very basic level. And for us, it's about the supply side, right? Like really focused on that. In the past we had, it's mostly through the government's direction, done some things on the demand side to try to bring affordability, but generally those things we found don't really work that well, right? Okay. Whether it's changing amortizations and things like that, like those things have limited impact versus just being able to free up more supply into the market. And with CMHC, it's mostly the products and programs we have towards adding rental housing, right? And you could speak from experience.
Exactly.
In terms of,
great experience with
the
CMHC.
Product. So that's really what we're doing. The mandate itself, it changes periodically, but I think the last few iterations have just been minor tweaks, and they've essentially still been at the root. Supply is the key to keeping or to bringing back affordability to the market, and that's what we're doing right now. That's our focus. Even in my job as an analyst of data, we're geared towards analyzing that aspect of housing and sort of educating the public and the industry about it.
Yeah, so you just shifted your supply thing, you just came up with some new numbers, right? And I want you to. So you had numbers based on supply and market conditions of 2004, if I'm not mistaken, right? That was the goal, right? Am I wrong on that?
You're referring to the aspiration of how much more supply we need versus what we're building now.
Yes, exactly. Right. And then you've modified that to be if I can say
2019.
2019. Yeah, if I can say pre-COVID. Yeah. Exactly. Did you guys see that one coming?
Did anybody?
No. Yeah. Now, I want a sidebar. Going forward, again, part of the mandate is future ready, and I want to go back to that question. But going forward, are you looking at models going forward, like things like the pandemic, for instance, in looking at how you shape some of that mandate or some of your policies? Is that something on everybody's radar screen at CMHC?
Yeah, you're definitely learning from those experiences, and we are pretty heavy on the modeling side in our division for sure. So that's something we're always looking at. Yeah. But I would say, in terms of these types of events, it's hard to even see even today's, fast forward to right now, right, in the present.
Yes, yeah.
It's hard to look back and find a period that's the same, really. It's same in some ways, but in a lot of ways it's not, right? Yeah. With the whole uncertainty around the trade deal and what's doing to the market right now.
So let's go back to the supply side. So now you're talking back to 2019. So we want to increase the supply. So my question is, back to 2019, are we thinking that, how do we do that? And are we thinking that we're going to get down to 2019 prices when we increase the supply to that degree and make more affordability? What is 1 + 1 = 2? How can you walk me through that? Because full disclosure, I have criticized that whole thing and then trying to figure this thing out. I'm trying to even if we got rid of development charges and all kinds of stuff, it's still a tough go. And plus, in Hamilton, Burlington, Halton, there's still a ton of unsold inventory. So I just wonder, let's go a little deeper dive into the supply piece and what the theory is and the modeling you're doing.
For sure. So the 2019 was chosen because it was prior to pandemic,
Yep.
like you said. And what we're trying to do is figure out how much more housing we have to build on top of what we're already building to get back to sort of like that level of price to income
Yes.
ratio, right?
Yeah.
We're not saying that that is affordable, but it's better than it is now. And it's back before the pandemic where you obviously saw that run up in prices that sort of got away from a lot of people, right? So we wanted to estimate basically how much housing you have to build on top of what you're building. And it's about almost double, right?
Yeah.
Almost like doubling what you're currently building in the province, let's say, or in the different
So unless
regions to what it does is it kind of gets you in this mindset of
Okay.
like, wow, it's usually, people react to say, just to get back to that level of sort of housing affordability, then we have to build this much more housing. Wow, it brings like that challenge to the table.
Yeah, no, I get
and that's
you.
what kind of its intention is to say like, look, all levels of government and the industry as well, how are we going to get this done, right?
Yeah. But
Because if you don't, there's going to be consequences. It's a little bit more of a long-term look too, right? We're
Yeah,
looking
cool.
10 years out.
Yep.
So even though right now there's a lot of inventory on the market, as you all know, in all segments, it is temporary, right?
Yeah.
We're not going to
yeah,
see
sure.
that
Yeah.
buyer's market conditions likely 5 years out, 10 years out, right? So we're thinking more long-term. And as you know as well, the projects take so long to get from
Oh,
approval
God.
to
Yes.
shovel in the ground that you have to kind of do something to get ahead of this, because what's going to happen is we have a glut of houses right now on the market, but when we don't, there's this huge lag between the next phase of building, right? Because everyone sort of stops building when there's a glut, and then they start again, but then everyone, you're sort
Yeah.
of behind the curve again. You're late.
Yeah, and then income. But the thing is, then it's on the premise that incomes will increase, or are we thinking that what's happened to the condo market in Toronto, like that there's just an oversupply, that we've seen some price instability, and they're talking another 10% in this quarter, like condos average price going down 10%. So then so is the premise that we're gonna build, like, let's look at the condo. You got a little microcosm. You got a little thing going on with the condo market, that there has been price softening, right, over time in Toronto. And you say to yourself, okay, we've got this supply, so price is coming down. Now, what are people that are in single family and nice communities? Are they thinking that my price is going to come down to 2019 because they're going to build more product? Like, that's my question.
No doubt.
Or is my income going to go much higher?
Well, it's a combination. We're factoring in some wage growth, right? Because
Okay.
Over that span,
Yeah, okay.
if you look back historically, there's always wage growth
Yes, of
over
course,
like a decade-long span,
Yeah.
right? It's not like things will be stagnant on that front.
Yeah.
But it's more about what that supply does to sort of normalize prices, right? And when you talked about the single-family housing market, right? Like, let's not kid ourselves. Right now, that the prices are going down that market too.
Yep, it is, yeah.
Generally,
Yeah.
in most centers across the province.
Yes.
It's just that the condo market's getting more attention because prices are falling faster.
Yeah.
And you just have that, there's so much inventory still to be built,
Yeah.
right? That's either under construction or sort of starting, that, there's a lot more headwinds in that
Yes.
space. But in the single family market right now, people are just waiting on the sidelines, not buying. And you can see the effect because the prices are going down there as well.
Yeah.
In terms of what it does to current homeowners, that's the kind of what you're saying. It's
Yeah,
sort of a lightning rod
Tell me,
politically.
yes, exactly. Yeah.
You have to balance both, right? You can't
Yeah.
just think about the current homeowners versus the potential or future homeowners as well. I don't think adding that much supply would necessarily lead to those current homeowners taking a huge hit financially overall, right? Now, if you bought at the peak of prices in early 2022 versus right now, you're already
Oh, yeah, you're
already in trouble.
yeah,
And
you're underwater.
I suspect some more the listings activity is those kind of people that are like recently bought and are renewing their mortgage and they're in trouble and they're looking to sell. There's a little bit
Yeah.
of that going on, but overall, most people are still in pretty pretty good shape.
Yeah, pretty
I
good
would
shape.
say.
Yeah, well, absolutely. Let's talk about a program that you guys just started this year, which was moving it up to insured up to 1.5 million, and that would be
Right.
single detached. Good segue into that. I did the numbers because I do a video every Friday. So what's my Friday video? I'm going to look at. So this program is 8 months old now, right?
Right.
And what has it done to that market? Like, what has it done to that market? If I were to ask you, what do you think? Like, do you think we've seen an increase? Do you think we've seen an increase in the amount of sales over $1 million to 1.5 million? What do you think? I'm going to put you on the spot.
No doubt. Given the current environment, it's impossible for any sort of program to lead to a growth
Yeah.
situation, right? So that's always a problem. I get questions like this a lot, actually,
Yeah.
even from, say, municipal governments. They'll
Yeah.
be like, well, we're going to, some of them recently are reducing their development charges. A few
Yes, of
cities
course,
have
yeah.
gone
Yeah,
towards
Vaughan,
that,
yeah,
including
50, yeah.
Hamilton,
Hamilton, yeah.
Burlington. And I get questions from people saying, well, how do you evaluate, like, are we seeing more activity? Well, you can't detach the two from
Yeah.
the climate we're in, right?
Yes.
In the current climate, you're going to see less activity just because
Yeah.
the state of the economy, where rates are. This is only helping to sort of bring things back or keep them from falling
Yeah.
further right now.
Yeah.
When the outside influences are more favorable, then I think it's better to evaluate the way
Yeah.
things are working. So the 1.5 million limit on purchase prices, I'm sure there has been negligible impact so far this year, just
Yep.
because everyone's sitting on
Which
the
is
sidelines and
yeah.
not buying,
You're
right?
right, yeah.
But I think it will, once that uncertainty, the dark cloud of the trade deal kind
Yeah.
of is gone, and people start being comfortable making like a big decision like that
Yeah.
in their life, that you will start to see the impact
Yeah.
of that. Because, I show this one chart in presentation, especially in the GTA area, where like there's still a lot of markets where like even that sort of most commonly found single detached home is still over 1.5.
Yeah, you're right.
Right?
Yeah.
So because of that, it's definitely a beneficial thing out in this way,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
you can go a little bit higher, and the prices have gone that high in some areas of like the
Yeah.
Hamilton, Burlington,
they have. Yeah,
Niagara.
yeah.
So I think you'll start to see the impact, but not right now. Like
Yeah.
nothing's going to show an impact right now, is what I'm trying to
Yeah,
say.
you're absolutely right. Now the thing is, and I did the numbers. What's interesting is we've seen something very fascinating happening in Hamilton just in August. That we've seen this huge amount of inventory coming on the market, up like anywhere from some stats show it like 8 to 9% over last August to 15% more inventory.
Active listings? Is it?
Active listings. And it led the entire region, none of the regions. It was double digits compared to other regions in terms of August. Because August is usually a pullback month, and then you get this big bump in September of inventory. So it's kind of odd to me. Then the other thing is that big growth area was that 1 million plus was a big growth in listings. However, when we look at the sales, Hamilton, Halton, Niagara, okay, we see a decrease in that 1 to 1.5 million from last year, which is kind of fascinating to me because rates were higher last year. So the uncertainty of the market is playing in what you're saying,
100%.
more so than rates. So it leads me to the other thing, these policies. Like you said, it's better for us people in the West. What's it like being the poor cousin region that everything else is about, Vancouver and Toronto? Don't you find, like, when we're up here, like at CMHC, when they're looking at it, are they really looking at Toronto, Montreal, and Vancouver when they're doing some of this analysis, especially when they increase from 1 to 1.5 million? Like that was
Right.
spearheaded that, right?
Well, an area like Montreal, that's very expensive, right?
Yes,
So
yeah.
the prices are just generally. Toronto and Vancouver are kind of
yeah.
parallel.
But we're the poor cousin region. You cover the poor cousin region.
Well, I can tell you, as I said in the.
I'm kidding.
We're not the poor cousin. Let's make that clear.
Yeah.
I said off the top that my job is to actually cover all these areas. So we have like dedicated people across the country, right? So we're not just focusing on those larger centers. You
Yeah.
know. Some of them, like especially on the affordability angle, are sort of at a different level. Toronto, Vancouver, but Hamilton's right there. Right?
Yeah, no,
Like
you're
if
right.
you
It
were
is,
to-
yeah.
When we
Yeah.
do sort of rankings and look at
Yeah.
these things on affordability metrics, usually Vancouver and Toronto are neck and neck.
Yeah.
And then it's like Hamilton and like Victoria. Like those are the two
Yep.
sort of like neighboring type
Yes,
of
you're right.
regions
Yes, yeah.
that are next on sort of a next tier. So
Yeah.
definitely is a huge priority for us. So it's like these policies are designed and it's difficult because if you do something nationally, right?
Yeah.
There's always going to be areas where it doesn't work for this community or that
Yeah,
community.
it's a tale of two cities. It just seems that way, right? Yeah.
But I think like I said, it will probably free up some demand.
Okay.
It's not meant to be, a boom to the industry, to the demand, because we know that things like this will start to pump prices back up.
Yes.
Right. So you
Yeah.
don't want, is it like a balancing act?
Oh, yeah,
with these
totally.
things?
Yeah.
You don't want it to become a thing where like, okay, the wave of buyers that can take advantage of this now jump in, but then they push prices so high that the next wave can't do it because the prices are too low
Yeah,
again. And
yeah.
we're not going to keep
Yeah.
bumping up this
Because,
insurance limit past 1.5 million to 2
Yeah.
and 2. You know what I mean?
Because
So-
it does. It pushes that. Like, so there's people that were hovering on that nine. They were probably worth $1,050,000, $1,000,001, but believe it or not, to fish where the fish are. So we tried to keep it to that under, just to be under the million, so they could do insured. Now it does kind of incrementally. So then it kind of flies in the face of the affordability piece when you do when you do something like that. Let's talk about defaults. Well,
Okay.
that's the black cloud, right?
Yeah, it's one of them. for sure.
Yeah, it's good. So what do you see? Like, look, we had a small double cohort now, if I can say. We had a lot of those people that bought in later 2020, right? They've got a lot of renewals coming now. And the other thing is too, we had people that were that bought in 2022 that did 3-year mortgages because things started to ratchet up. So you got a bit of and then I think the next big double cohort's going to be the guys that bought in 2021, and they're going to be up in 2026. And we also told people in 2023 only take 3 years. So you're going to see this influx of renewals. Let's talk about the default side. What are you seeing? Anecdotally, we're seeing some power sales and things like that. Who's faring the best, and are we going to see something? Is this a canary in the coal mine in some cases, and we're going to see something bigger coming down the line?
Generally, what we're seeing is that the default rates are rising, but still not that high.
Hi. Yeah. Okay.
Right?
Cool. I
So
love that you
it
said that.
depends
Yeah.
where they're starting.
Yeah, it's
right? You
decimal
always have to
0,
remember
0,
that. So like, pandemic, all-time low because
Yes.
you had low rates and you had like, some of these more favorable programs if people were in trouble, right? Like
Yeah.
the banks were a little more accommodating. So things have been rising since, but they're still not high if you look historically to some of these periods where maybe you saw more power of sales on the market, like
Yeah.
we're talking like the early 90s.
90s. Yeah. You were just born then in the 90s.
not that young. Not that young.
Yeah.
but-
You were. Yeah.
No, but that's where it's at. So it's increasing, but not that high on the default side. But you could definitely see it in the listings activity. You talked just about the listings now, and you talked about listings at that sort of 1 million plus. You saw
Yeah.
Like that has to be playing into that.
I think so.
I'm hearing that a lot anecdotally.
Yeah.
And it makes sense because some people sort of got into a home that maybe was a little bit over their head.
Yeah.
They got in when the rates are low. They're renewing. Right? Because even in my own neighborhood, you see some listings popping up, even more in like the expensive range. Like
Yes,
people just
yes.
stretched a little bit
Yes.
to get into that 4-bedroom detached home.
Yeah.
Instead of buying the 3-bedroom or the townhouse, and now they're in trouble in their listing, right?
Yeah.
And the listings are, as you know, like they're all over the map in terms
Yep.
of the
Yeah.
pricing
Yeah.
and how long they're sitting on the market.
Yeah,
right?
you went to that same thing I did. Now we're seeing that higher price, and again, I think a lot of this activity. We saw some huge sales in July and August because that's again it was renewal time because they all bought in May, June, July of 2020. Renewals kind of spur movement, right? So and then some of them could have got in a little bit too high, and that's why we're seeing. This jump, like we never see an August where there's a big, huge influx of inventory. People are just kind of wait till the kids go to school. So it's interesting. And I've kind of making that connection too, that some of these people overreached and now's the time that they want to do something. And they have equity, which is fantastic because if you bought in 2020, you've done super well. So let's talk about, before the show, we started talking about your clients, being developers and municipalities and that type of thing. Who are you guys collaborating with? Like, do you collaborate at all with the BOC? Do you guys ever talk to, let's say, Fannie Mae or Freddie Mac in the U.S.? Like, tell me about that interplay, those discussions. Like, is there any discussion with BOC at all?
We do, yeah, definitely. At all levels of government and organizations like that, definitely. I would say it's more on the chief economist side, so our guys in Ottawa, right, regularly meet with these groups, present for them, even international other countries that are interested in our housing system.
That's what I mean. Yeah.
Like I know of that sort of thing happening a lot. And then there's obviously the constant regular dialogue with the actual minister, right?
Yeah.
The federal minister, right? Briefing notes,
Yeah.
presentations for them, all of that. And obviously with the changeover in government, right? It's a new minister. There's a lot of that happening right now. And also, there's also see that what's going to come with this Canada Builds, right?
Yes, that's right.
Which is part
Yeah.
of the Carney election promise.
Yeah. Well, we'll see how that's going to be an interesting piece there. So let's talk about that and that interplay. The stress test. Okay, how much interact, like you were a data source for the whole idea of the stress test, or no, or
Typically in those sorts of situations, we don't make the decision.
Yeah,
right.
mhm.
We're getting handed the decision and then we're implementing it.
Yeah, I gotcha.
right?
Yeah. Mhm.
But on our in our sort of department that I work in, in the modeling side, they will sort of tap us on the shoulder and say, like, scenario analysis. If this happens, what's the result? If we
Yes.
change the like, for example,
Qualifying.
the 1.5 million, right?
Yes, yeah,
versus
exactly.
the 1
Yeah,
million.
yeah.
That's more directly. The stress test is the OFC.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Like, they're
Mhm.
the
Yeah,
ones
yeah.
but we're involved in these
Yeah.
kind of discussions because they sort of lean on us sometimes for the analysis piece of, like, what it could do. Ultimate decision, though, lies with them.
Yeah.
So there could be cases where we're just presenting you sort of like with what could happen
Yes.
if you implement this policy versus that, but they ultimately decide what gets put into effect.
So maybe this is you signed an NDA on this, but
No NDA.
no, but no,
It's not
NDA.
that important.
But my question is, like, okay, so there was this thing floating around about capital gains on principal residences. It's been floated, right? And was there any, and well, again, even the new effective rate too, because that could have affected people selling apartments and things like that, which is in your domain as
Right.
well. But were you guys consulted? Was there any discussion? Like, are they doing any modeling that you know of in and around capital gains on principal residence?
Nothing that I'm aware
seen.
of, to be
Okay,
honest.
curious,
Like, even when I saw those articles,
So that's all
some of
just
those
fake
articles
news, right?
came out in the
Yeah,
news.
yes,
I don't know if it's
exactly.
fake news, but it's
Yeah.
not something that, like, we have like a department
Yeah.
investigating or a folder in my
Yeah.
drive on my computer that says there's nothing like that there.
Yeah.
It's just something that, honestly, I read about it in the news, and I'm not sure how serious
That
it
is,
was
yeah.
in the first place.
Yeah,
or
okay.
not. I don't think people like homeowners should be too worried about.
Yeah. No, I
That's stuff
appreciate
like
that. Yeah.
that, right?
Well, because that's something, that's kind of, you're protecting home ownership too as well. I was just wondering. So that's good news that they haven't tapped you guys on the shoulder to model that. Because look, I'm a firm believer. I love some of the American things. I do like their exchange program when it comes to commercial properties, that you have 6 months to deploy, redeploy. I have an apartment building in New York City and I go buy a plaza in Florida, and the next 6 months I don't pay capital gains. There is capital gains on their principal residence, but there's they write off the insurance, the interest. There's a lot of things at play. The stress test, to me, and again, this is a little out of scope, but to me,
Sure.
when you look at the stress test and you look at Canadians underwater, there are Canadians underwater in Canada in their homes if they bought in late 2021 and 2022. U.S. about a year ago declared there's nobody underwater. Okay, and I think when we artificially play with the system, and I think the stress test, this is my rant, I think that stress test, if you do the tale of two countries, one didn't have a stress test, one did. There was our crisis in 2008 was like 4 months. Theirs was a complete wash. Their incomes to debt is way lower than ours. Like, there's some headwinds. So how do you think?
So is that anti-stress test or pro?
I am anti-stress
Oh, you're
test.
anti, okay.
I think.
Yeah,
let
I
the
was gonna
market-
actually say it could be pro in a way from what you said.
I'm anti-stress test. I believe if you really took the numbers and looked at it, what they went through in '08 and whatever, and now because I would say our debt levels are way higher than theirs, and they didn't have any intervention like we did.
You know why, though? My short answer
Yeah.
for that would be, it's because they had a crash.
Yeah.
That the debt levels are lower, right?
I
so
know.
we didn't go through that.
I know.
Which we don't want that.
But-
right? Now, because we didn't go through that period where prices were just falling like for years, then we are still more indebted, right? But the low debt there is a function of that reset they had.
Yes, yeah.
Right? So it's sort of like
And we
they're
didn't
correlated.
have it. We didn't have that little pain. And look, I speak in Europe.
Yeah.
I'm going to be speaking at a conference shortly in Europe. Nobody's talking to me about anybody in any pain and buying and rates and things like that. In the U.S., it's a whole different thing because, there's no mortgage portability, and I think 70% of 4% or below, you got to really want to move to get into new or something. But in Europe, they went through that '08 thing. A lot of them did. A lot of countries did. They're coming out of it. I never hear them, maybe they have their biggest problem is, sellers want too much money, but that's always the case. But it's not like everybody's uncertain or not dipping their toe in or whatever. They're growing. It just seems normal. Like, so when I
that
talk
is a
about
byproduct. You're right, because people are not dipping their toe in now.
Yeah,
One of the main reasons is that the prices are still high.
Yes,
because they didn't reset during any sort of a high indebted period, right? Like that, they're sort of connected to each other in a way because we didn't have that reset. People are sitting. One of the main reasons they're on the side. It's not just the uncertainty with the economy. That's the number one. But the other one is, I show this in a lot of charts when I do presentations, that if you did a qualifying mortgage payment right now, you're just back to 2021.
Yes.
Because of rates are still higher, right? The prices have come down, but the rates are still higher. So you're kind of where you were in 2021, which wasn't an affordable year either.
No,
right?
it's not. No.
So that's kind of why people are still waiting.
Yeah. When you look at the homes that sold between 1 million and 1.5 million in the 2021, it's staggering. It's probably 25 or 30% higher than it is today. And a lot of those people were buying at 20% down, right? So I want to talk about one of the things too about CMHC and and I ask this is a question I'm always going to ask at the end, okay? Because I believe, what is CMHC doing to make us future ready? Like this to me is like, where do you see us in the future? A lot of things going on, tariffs and whatever. The good numbers came out this morning with regards to exports and things like that. I think we just like a demon, like we like to have a bad guy. You know what I mean? And they both start with T. But I think we always like that. We always want to find some excuse. I think that's the Canadian thing. The reason it's not going well is mortgage rates or tariffs or whatever it could be, right? Or Quebec leaving or whatever, something like that, right? The threat of Alberta leaving, whatever we want to find. Yeah, whatever. Yeah, there's always a scapegoat. But what are you guys doing to make us future ready? Because there's a lot of headwinds. We talked about debt, talked about personal debt. Compared to incomes, supply, we're at an all-time low. 10-year, like Ontario especially. We're below the 10-year average in terms of producing units and things like that. Part of your thing is the supply side. Where do you see us in 5 to 10 years, and where do you see that program? Are we going to look at big tracts of land with these homes that are going to be built without basements and you know what I mean, that kind of thing? These modular homes, So, and where does CMHC fit in all that 5 and 10 years down the road?
Yeah, that's a great question. Going back to something I said earlier, I'll start with that. The part of, especially in the area I work in, the economics department, right? Mm-hmm. It's at a basic level, we're still alerting people again to this supply issue that is still there, even though right now there's a lot of inventory in the market. We know that eventually it's going to get cleared and we're going to need more supply. So part of our job looking forward is to say, hey, let's not get complacent and be like, well, because I've heard this a lot this year. Yeah. People in the industry saying, well, there's so much inventory, like, you guys are banging the drum about building more homes. Like, what's the point of this? Yeah. Well, that's this year, right?
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
And I could tell you one thing I always mention too is sales activity is so low right now in the province and in this region especially. It's not sustainable to stay this low for long. When you look at the population size and that huge wave of people that moved into the country, let's say 2022 to 2024, right? That's when the market really started to cool off.
Yes.
But we had a ton of people move here.
Yes.
A lot of them rented. And they're moving into that, that phase where it's like, okay, I moved in from another country. I rent when I first moved, and then I'm looking to buy now. Yeah. All right. So I think we're in store for like a big recovery when that cloud is lifted, the dark cloud. Again, we don't know when, but when it's lifted, we're going to be in a position where we're going to be looking around and saying, wow, that inventory got cleared faster than we thought. Yep. And we need to get going on this building. And we're still doing the same things we used to, which is a problem. So we're alerting the public about, or the industry about, building keeping that supply up because it takes forever, as you know, to build, especially apartments, right?
Yes, it does.
You gotta
Yeah, yeah, it's a long time.
the apartments, all those apartments getting completed this year, right? The large number. What would you guess in terms of when they were shoveled in the grounds? Probably 2-3 years ago.
Yep.
Selling
24 months.
maybe 4 to 5 years
Yeah,
ago.
about that. Yeah, absolutely.
Right?
Yeah.
So what was the market then?
Oh, yeah, it was
on
a whole
fire,
different animal,
right? It was
right? Yeah.
whatever adjective you want to use.
Yeah,
It was
yeah,
a
yeah,
hot
yeah,
market.
yeah.
So you need to get ahead of these things. So that's
Yeah.
the main thing. Other thing I would say with CMHC is all the financing support we do, right? Especially, again, in the rental space, which you operate in. So we're always trying to get ahead of that. And there's always tweaks made to the way the formula works in terms of who gets financing and all that. But we are always looking to increase that supply in the market and to make it like, listening to developers and actually tapping into like their some of their concerns in terms of like how to make things easier for them to bring the supply to the market.
And then go again, future ready again. Let's talk about that modular home thing. Like that's going to be a whole new sector for Canadians in a sense, right? Maybe you could equate it to wartime homes. That it's interesting. But
some people make the comparison.
Yeah, but we could be seeing like homes with no basements. Like how are these things going to appraise? Like going forward, like
a lot of questions to be answered.
It's going to be a very
and
interesting.
I'm not even sure how CMHC specifically fits into that yet.
That's what I'm
It's so
asking.
new.
Have they talked about that? Is there anything that
there isn't much yet? I would say the you probably know this as well. That whole Canada Builds.
Yeah.
It's being created, formed. There's a lot of consultation with the industry, which is good.
Yeah.
Before they actually staff and have that sort of clear mandate going, it seems like that will happen potentially more in that organization. But it is a change, and you know what? If you look at some other countries in Europe, right, they do this.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Sweden's got a great program.
Scandinavian countries.
Yeah. I think it's Singapore or Thailand. I'm not sure. What they have a really great
Some
program
countries,
as well.
exactly. They're in other parts of the world. So this is something that they're doing already. It's a complement to what we're already doing, but it is at least trying to address that main thing we've mentioned a few times on this show, which is that speed.
Yeah, the speed
of building,
yeah,
right? Like
yeah.
The whole thing about getting it built faster. You have I'm not an expert in this, but I know you're essentially approved in the factory, right?
Yes.
Because it's done in the factory.
Yes.
You're sort of the inspection's done there. Right?
Yes,
so you don't have to go through all those visits from the municipality.
Oh, and it's the time and weather and that's all kind of things.
All those things.
Yeah,
So it's a solution. I don't think it's the silver bullet.
Yep. Okay.
But it's something that people may warm up to, particularly if it's single family housing at a price that they can't afford. Because we know, a lot of these millennial generation households are getting to that age, right? Where they're like getting married, having kids. Some of them might want to sell that condo. Not easy right now, but eventually they will, and they want to go to like a single family home, and that could be an option depending on the price point.
Well, it's interesting. I think Peter Gilgan, again, he made a big splash about he's getting back into that modular thing, and he's starting with 6-story mid-rise. So that's interesting. So he takes a plot of land that he's got. He does the 6-story. Could be next door to another 6-story. Okay, that was built conventionally, and he's saying that the savings is dramatic. So he'll pass on that savings to the consumer. What's going to happen to that existing building that was built 5 years prior, conventionally, at much higher price per square foot? It's going to be very interesting dynamic.
A competitive standpoint?
Yeah, and I think that's going to start to, if that gets some steam and bubbling up, I think that's got to be on somebody's radar screen coming in CMHC, right?
No doubt. But because it's so new, like there will be a lot of work, like you're saying, into the implications of all this, right, for existing homes.
Yeah.
But I think the first thing is getting this capacity on that modular front to see like how big it could be and the scaling and the costs and all that.
Yeah. So let's talk real quickly and then we can wrap up. I want to talk a little bit about sales are down, unit sales are down. God bless us. You're seeing your sales are down for insured mortgages, right? Like you're not seeing the volume you did.
Absolutely. We'll mirror the market.
Yeah,
right?
you mirror the market.
Overall market's down, we're gonna be down.
So your coffers are not as healthy as they were, let's say, in 2021. Can I say that?
Yeah, maybe 2021, I'm not sure. But like compared to last year, we were actually up a bit.
Okay, compared to last year.
Activity.
Okay, good.
But 2021, no, because the market was so much higher.
Yeah.
The sales activity
Yeah.
was, you know.
So that's got to be an interesting thing, because are we like, look, I love your optimism, and I'm that too, right? I believe in that. I think we're just around the corner for certain things that are going to happen. Like you said, maybe late 26, 27. You know, this demand. People can't live in their parents' basements forever. I'm a firm believer in that, and people grow their families. But it's, you know what? Is the watering hole, the sales of units, going to be at this 10-year low, or are we going to see it go up incrementally? Are we going to see more builds? Are we going to see that? 10%, 5%? What do you see in those years?
I think into next year,
What are
and
you
again, this is
projecting?
all like assuming
Yeah.
we're not in the exact same position on the
Yeah.
trade deal front, right? If something is more concrete, you know, potentially next year because of the Kuzma
Yep.
aspect,
Yep.
right? There's
Yep.
a little bit more clarity.
Yep.
You know, I think we are going to slowly come out of this. I think we are.
Yeah,
You know,
good.
counteracting factor is that listing. So we were talking
Yes,
about
yeah.
with the renewals and how much that will increase or not.
Yeah.
So on the price front, you know, you might not see, maybe prices stabilize or maybe prices keep going down a bit, but there might be more activity, right?
Yeah.
Activity can increase and prices still go down depending on how much
100%,
inventory
you're
is
right.
out
Yeah,
there.
you're right. And what
The
inventory,
inventory
yeah,
to
the
me is
mix.
the real wild card,
Yeah,
right? Like,
okay.
because you really don't get a great sense. Like you get an idea, like we were saying, higher end homes kind of hitting the market, or that 1 to 2 million more of them because of the renewals.
Yep.
If that intensifies next year because it's a larger wave of renewers, right?
Yep.
It's
Mhm.
the 2021 5-year fixed people, right? That are hitting. Then, you know, we might not see prices start to come back, but we might see some more buyers jump in,
Yeah.
because it is a good time to buy,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Oh, yeah, it's
if I
probably,
was
best conditions in a
if I
long
was
time.
a potential first time buyer right now, I would consider buying,
Mm-hmm.
because I'm not so sure, like, and that it's going to stay like this for long, given what we know about these Southern Ontario markets.
100%.
And, on the supply side, that's going to be slower to recover, right? It always recovers after the resale market has already sort of gotten his legs back,
Yeah.
right? And usually it's the sort of townhouse type of homes
Yep.
that'll recover the first, because
Yeah.
the inventory isn't that big in that segment.
Yeah.
The condo apartment is a whole different story. That's a couple years away likely, because there's
Yep.
so much inventory already.
Yeah.
And then there's so much being built,
Yeah.
right? With the single family houses, like single detached, hardly anything's being
Yeah,
built.
unicorns.
Townhomes,
Yeah,
some,
yeah.
but again, not a glut.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So those ones will be faster
Yeah.
to see maybe prices tick back up.
Oh yeah, in Toronto, saw like last month, they talked about what drove was semis. Like they have
Semis too, yeah.
because those semis really drove them. Like I think it was up 48% in July. So using AI in your day-to-day life, is CMHC using AI at all? Are they using any model, like to do any of the modeling and projecting? Is it coming into your world?
It is. I don't, it's in the early stages.
Yeah. Mhm. Yeah.
It's used a lot. We're looking at machine learning AI
Yep.
stuff with predicting.
Yes. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Again, we'll see how good
Okay.
it works, right?
Okay,
They still
yeah.
have the guy like me in the room to look at things
Yes,
and go,
yeah,
something's wrong with this picture.
Yeah.
Because, you know, even if you type something in your chat GPT, sometimes the answer's a little bit weird that you get, right? It's
Yeah.
not always, depending on how detailed
Yeah.
things get, right? I find like it changes. But it definitely makes your life easier, right? Even in our work, right? Like in terms of writing things, you know, we
Yeah.
might tap into that a little
Yeah.
bit, but not much. Like
Yeah.
I would say it's early stages
Yeah.
with that, but you can tell that there's a push for that throughout all levels of government now,
Yes.
right? Like it was mentioned
Yeah.
even in the by the Prime Minister
Yeah.
a few times in terms of like government departments
Yes.
utilizing this to make things more efficient.
Yeah. Well, you know, you said a mouthful. Like, it's that 15 years. Like, how do I get that 15 years in your head into that? that's a
Yeah.
tough go. And you got to
Yeah,
know
there are
the
limitations, I
Oh
think.
yeah, and you have
Like,
to know the data. Like
yeah.
sometimes we use it, and I'm saying no, that's not the right answer. Go back. Like, but you have to have that knowledge base, right, to be able to do that.
And
right?
the other
So-
part I would just add too is in our job, like we do like the projections, right? Like we
Yeah.
were just talking
So,
about.
yeah.
A big part of that, I can tell you, beyond just like anyone could do projections on a computer.
Yep.
You can have
Yep.
programs,
Yep.
but there is that aspect we add to it, which is like me talking to people like you and getting a sense of things that aren't like in the data yet. Sometimes the data lags, right?
Yes, yeah.
And sometimes things don't show up, and we are on top of it before that, because we're sort of have our feelers out there, like myself.
Ear to the ground. Yeah.
Give you a good example quickly. Last year, we do our rental market data once a year. It's very popular. Rents, vacancies, all that.
Yep.
In all these communities, especially the ones outside the GTA, Hamilton, Waterloo, London, Windsor, Niagara, all the ones that I cover, the data was still showing that the international student numbers, because they're from like early in the year. So we were doing our survey in October. There were no numbers past the first 3 months of that year. Oh, they're really high. We can't attribute anything to because the rents were already starting to fall,
soften
the vacancies,
a bit,
everything was softening. I'm talking to rental operators, just one-on-one meetings like this, and they're all telling me the same thing. Way less student rental demand. We're not getting that rush to secure units early in the year. Like students tend to,
they want
to get in April for the whole year. Some of them are saying, we'll get to August to find a unit because there's not a lot of.
And that was not in the past at all.
And no one you couldn't see that in numbers. You could only hear that from attending events and talking to people and all that. So then we ended up putting in a report a lot about that, right?
Yeah.
In markets like Hamilton,
Totally, yeah.
Near McMaster, the vacancy rates were a lot higher, or near
London,
Conestoga College in Kitchener, or Laurier and Western and Fanshawe, all that.
Yeah, they're all going to feel it. Yeah, it's funny. You took it right out of my head because I was going to talk about that because that's again, where does everybody fall on that foreign student and foreign, again, there was buzz about lifting the foreign buyer ban. Like, does that play in the face of affordability for you and your organization, or where is everybody standing on that?
Again, it's similar to that other thing you mentioned earlier. Like when I read about the capital gains thing, I read about that, the foreign ban. There's suggestions out there by. I think it's mostly some developers.
Oh, totally,
right?
Because
from CMHC perspective, it goes totally in the face of affordability.
Totally,
and also what it goes in the face of is this idea of the mix of the units in the apartment buildings, right? That's going to change, you would think.
Yes.
So if the investors are making up less of the owners of these types of units in a condo building, for example, you can't be building 80% bachelor one bedrooms.
Yes.
And then be able to sell those to a family, right? So if you just bring back some of those, the more foreign investment, for example, where they're just looking to rent the unit, that doesn't work, right? So we're trying to, we're definitely not
it's a
in
kind
favor of that.
I call it that stroke of a pen economics, right? Just again, you got to think about people were building these things and they were envisioning this and the growth in that area. And then all of a sudden the rug gets pulled, and that's just the capital. That's just the market, right? That's capitalism at its best.
It's a period of adjustment right now.
Absolutely. Well, Anthony, I have to thank you. You've got your ear to the ground more than anybody I know in the organization. I think it's fantastic. Your outreach, you're coming to organizations like ours, boards and things like that, and you're always very open, and can't thank you enough. And you know what, I have to say, we're in safe hands with people like you at the helm of CMHC, and we're looking forward to some great new data to come out. I'd like to see we talked earlier about some rental, consumer data around rental and things like that, which would be kind of nice, because I think we're going to start to see those numbers go from 67% ownership to maybe 65, 60. We could be seeing that down the pipe, right? Do you get a sense of that a little bit, or
potentially? The rental market is softening, but a lot of that is just so much supply hitting the market.
Yes, that's right.
It's not necessarily the demand being that much lower, except maybe on that student side that we talked about. But again, going forward, a few years from now, potentially, again, things might stabilize on that front. If prices keep coming down, some people might be able to jump into home ownership instead of staying renters as long as they have.
And seniors too, getting into realizing that this is a good phase, the next phase of their lives too. And it's not a dirty word to rent.
No.
And the rental product is beautiful now. It's really nice.
Absolutely. Seniors are definitely an area of growth for rental. And it's clearly, you speak to people that develop the units, that's a prized tenant, right?
Yes, of course, yeah.
The senior, the senior that sold their house.
Yes, oh my God, yes, I know,
right? It's the best tenant you could possibly have. And that should pick up too.
I think so.
Because it's correlated with selling your house.
Yes.
And right now, it's hard to sell your house.
Yes.
So some of those seniors might think, I'm going to wait till the market improves, and then I downsize. get a higher price.
Yes, and then they use that money to fund their retirement in a sense, and that's what the whole beauty of home ownership and what we've all been able to, some of us and most of us have been able to do in Canada with the help of CMHC. And I want to thank you again, Anthony. Honestly, it's so informative, and like you don't care, you answer all the questions no matter what. And I can't thank you enough for your time today. Amazing, and we really appreciate your transparency today, and I think people get a lot out of this session. Thank you.
I
again.
hope so.
Appreciate your
Anytime.
time. Thank you.